Welcome back to another episode of The Rundown. It's been a big week. Schools have now kind of started to come to a close, and the season in baseball and softball has started to come to a close for a good amount of the schools in the CSAA as well. A lot of change happening in the area, but we got the one constant, and that's the rundown, and we got everything that you need to know. It's myself, Joe, Brandon, also on this call. How are you doing, big dog?
Hey, we're doing good, man. A lot of recapping to be done with baseball and softball from district play this last weekend. Only a couple teams moving on, but it was certainly one of the most competitive years for the CSAA that we've seen in some time, and we can't wait to break it down.
Yeah, for sure. We got a lot to talk about. So might as well just get into the meat and potatoes right now and dig in. I think what do you want to do? Baseball or softball first, Brandon?
I mean, we can kind of start with baseball and kind of go day by day. But I guess really the matchups that we were looking for, Joe, as teams that could make it out, we were looking at especially the hometown district, District 37, which was definitely an interesting one to watch. Unfortunately, Coach Scarpelli's team falls in a nail biter against Whitehall, and really looked at that game. And Big Rapids just got behind and couldn't really dig themselves out of a hole. And it was an uncharacteristic game on their part. You give credit to Whitehall because offensively they came ready to play and they hit the baseball very well. But I think overall with this season, you got to be glad where this team was at. They ended up losing to the district champion, which is a team that I think if you asked a lot of those players, they know they can beat. It was just an off day, and you got to give the Vikings credit because they got the revenge that they've just simply been waiting for since the middle of winter when they played basketball, and especially from the fall when they were able to get a win, or I should say Big Rapids was able to get a win against Whitehall in that football district final.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Whitehall was able to take away that 2 out of 3, so it was a little bit unfortunate. I think really the only team that made it pretty far into it was Reed City, where they got to that opening round of the regionals, but they lost to Penn County, which is unfortunate. But still, district champions for Reed City is pretty big time. I don't know. You might have been able to get the scoop on it, Brandon. Did they end up throwing Max Hammond in game one, or out in that first game of regionals?
They did not throw Max Hammond, and that was certainly a decision that basically had to be made based on what I had heard. Is that Max was a little bit down and out as far as just overall arm stamina, and certainly when you look at the workhorse of a load he's taken this year, I mean he's really carried the team on the mound, and they wanted to wait and give him some more time to rehab, especially after really double dipping last week. So especially when you looked at Spencer Hansen, really didn't throw a bad game. There was a lot of errors for that Coyote defense, and that really kind of put them behind the sticks, you could say, in football terms. And Pinconning just really struck back in the fourth and the fifth inning, and that's what helped them able to be able to win that game and move on to play in the regional final coming up. But it's an unfortunate for Reed City as they really did have a good season, and obviously the record's not going to necessarily show for it in comparison to what we saw a year ago from this team and how far they went. But it's still really good, resilient team. You saw what Coach Granis and that team really did with what they had, and they really made a great season out of it. And you got to give them credit at the end of the day because, I mean, they played in a tough district and they got the job done. And obviously, Pinconning's a good team, and Pinconning's going to have their hands full in the next matchup. But still, for Reed City, a great season and another championship trophy in the case. You can't really complain much about that.
Yeah, not at all. That's the number. That date's going to go up on the banner up in the gym. That's going to be up there for all history. So that's cool as well. Central Montcalm, I believe, too, made it to regionals as well, but they fell to Lansing Catholic, which was another unfortunate spot, 0-9 in that one. But still, I mean, solid showing from CSA. Usually we don't get these teams, even in that kind of district play, you got a lot of teams going into the district final game. You don't really see that too much in these past few years, but it's just really starting to pick up with the talent that you're seeing in CSA baseball.
Yeah, for sure. And especially mentioning Central Montcalm. I mean, they're playing Lansing Catholic, a top 10 team in that division, especially at their place, which many people didn't know about. They were at Lansing Catholic, so home field advantage, especially for that team. Emma Ligaman really didn't throw a bad game, you would say. Obviously, he had a couple more walks than he probably would have wanted, the 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, but that's a really good lineup in Lansing Catholic. And especially noticing, looking back, this was a game. This really was a game. Central Montcalm competed. I'm looking back at the box score at the end of the fourth. It was only 1-0. And then it was 5 straight runs for Lansing Catholic in the top of the fifth that really got them away and able to hold on to it. But 13 hits compared to only 2 for Central Montcalm. Lansing Catholic was dealing, and you saw Tolfrey really had a fantastic game on the mound there for Catholic. But it's unfortunate for Central Montcalm, but they also, you say like Reed City, they had a really good season. You looked at really what that team had, what we were looking at as far, they really competed very well. They were especially a top 3 team in the conference when you look at everything that stacked up against them as far as how really good this conference was. Obviously, Big Rapids kind of had to step up from everybody, but right in that mix, there were 3, 4, 5 teams right there. We're going 1-for-1 splits on the weekends. They're playing a lot of these tough games, and Central Montcalm really showed. I mean, Evan Ligaman, he's really had a fantastic season. We're going to be excited to watch him pitch for the Rubber Ducks coming up next week. That's going to be really fun to watch, potentially. No word if he's actually starting just yet, but if he does, I'm hoping he does because he's a fantastic kid to watch throwing on the mound. So it's going to be really fun to see. But Central Montcalm, they made a lot of great success this year, and you got to give credit to that coaching staff and those players for really getting the job done, putting a district trophy in the case, and putting a successful season together.
Yeah, gotta give credit where credit is due. Good job, Central Montcalm. Way to go. You have the congrats from us at the rundown. We're going to hop now into softball. It's kind of like the same thing. I think Nuevo is still playing, correct? They're kind of going wild with their success so far. So good for you, Lions. Way to go. But kind of going into more of the whole thing that was going down, kind of in district play, even regionals and stuff like that. Brandon, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown on on what went down?
A rundown of the rundown. Well, this is a marketing opportunity if I've ever seen one. But you mentioned Newaygo. They're the last team standing, Newaygo softball right now. They play on Saturday, June 8th. That's 12 o'clock in Region 10 against the Allendale Falcons. So that should be fun to watch. So theirs was just set back date-wise with facility management and stuff like that as I completely just smash a microphone off of my right shoulder here. But I think when you look at the softball season as a whole, and we can kind of jump back into baseball too here in a minute, but you saw a lot of the great teams just fall early. It was really unfortunate this year. We saw, and we obviously were able to talk to Coach Stieg with Reed City. They played Ever, a team that literally made it to Michigan State literally just not too long ago in the first round in the semifinals. I mean, that's a hard draw, and they ended up falling to the Wildcats 9-0. Everett's offense is just absolutely phenomenal. And I think when you look at where they're going, I mean, they're just going to keep going at this point. We're going to see how far they get. And same for Big Rapids. I mean, you looked at really where they were at. They had a draw against a team that won the district last year in Freeland. And Freeland's a good ball club, and they showed it when you look back at the results from this year's district tournament. So it's really tough for those two teams, especially being top of the CSAA table and seeing all that regular season success. I mean, you saw the Big Rapids go 20-0, Reed City 18-2 in conference play. They had a couple of teams right out the 15-win range, and they really just were able to keep going throughout the season. Postseason, unfortunately, the caboose really kind of came off of the train, and that's unfortunate, but good to see Newaygo at least keeping on. They had a very favorable district. They took care of business. There was no slowing down, no shenanigans, nothing necessarily that would have kept them from winning that district, and they got the job done. We'll see how they do on Saturday because, I mean, that offense, we talked about it, Joe, they can put runs across in a hurry, and they showed that this weekend, and they're going to have to do the same if they're going to get by Allendale and see if they can compete for a regional title.
Yeah, that's not going to be an easy task, but we've seen, I mean, especially like when they played Big Rapids earlier, they were able to put up some points on the board, which not a lot of people expected. The same thing with Reed City, too. So good luck to Newaygo. Cannot wait to see what they do. And hopefully they keep it going because that means we just have a lot more to talk about when it comes to rundown. And we definitely don't want to stop talking about CSAA sports just yet. Just yet. But kind of letting you guys know, especially what's going to happen this summer. We got Rubber Ducks starting up next week, which we're going to be talking about right here, as well as maybe some of the kind of area softball, like travel leagues and stuff like that, as well as maybe some other things that might fill the air. Who knows? Maybe like slow pitch softball leagues. What else do we want to talk about? I mean, that could be something that could maybe garner some interest as well. But I think that's probably it for CSAA talk here. Not as much, obviously, as the season's kind of coming to a close. So going to Tiger baseball talk, Brandon. That sound good with you?
Let's do it, man.
Dude, Old English D in the City Connects are kind of insane. I'm not gonna lie. Like they have been playing pretty well so far. They don't lose very many times when they got the special jerseys on. But still, I mean, Brandon, what have you been seeing so far in this past week that you're liking from Tiger baseball?
Well, especially with the man named Tariq Schoolboy, I'm loving absolutely everything when it comes to the Southpaw. I mean, now probably some people may have seen he's now the #1 pitcher power ranking consideration in all of Major League Baseball. Now he's getting his flowers for how good he's been. He's been phenomenal. He's been
He's
amazing.
insane, dude. He's
His
insane.
His stuff is just absolutely untouchable right now. But speaking really with the Tigers as a whole, obviously right now they're kind of in the thick of it, finishing up a season, or I shouldn't say a season, finishing up a series with Texas. The Texas Rangers, of course, are a really good ball club. We took 2 out of the 3, which is very impressive. Obviously, Wednesday was a little tough as we saw the true Ranger offense come to life. And especially with the injury to Maeda, that really made things even worse for that team. But I mean, from there, it was 3 in a row before then. They ended up beating the Red Sox at Fenway, and then they go to Texas. They take 2 from the World Series winning Rangers. So that's a really good start and really good promise for this team. You're seeing the bat starting to come alive. Matt Vierling, not necessarily as red hot as he was a week ago, Aaron, talking on this show, but definitely has improved. Justin Henry Malloy, first hit, first dinger, absolute nuke. The
That was
guy's
a
a
wild. That
madman.
was wild, dude. That's wild.
I mean, that was amazing. And just the fact that his family was there, just absolutely phenomenal. Reese Olson continuing to deal. Obviously, still red hot. Not necessarily the same numbers as we talked a week ago, but he's still dealing. And we can't wait to see him get back onto the mound real soon. But overall, the pitching staff has done very well. The bullpen is definitely salvaged. There's been some little blips on the road. Batting wise, we're seeing some consistency. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate. But overall, I mean, Joe, the number one thing we got to talk about here, mentioning Justin Henry Malloy, we were talking about it potentially a couple weeks ago, and they finally made the decision to send Torkelson down. And that's a really bold move from a general managing staff, especially with Scott Harris and company, that was probably not taken lightly, sending down who was a first-round pick only 4 years ago.
Here's the thing, though. It kind of had to happen. I mean, we mentioned that. I think it was what, like a month or so before it happened. Like it was kind of in passing. I forget if you made the comment or if I did, but I know it just kind of like could that be a possibility? And the thing is for Spencer Torkelson, it's like, yeah, you can wait for him to kind of find his stride. He was kind of starting to when he got that bomb and kind of garbage time against, I forget which team it was, but then the next day comes up clutch with a 2-run home run in the bottom of the 8th. So it looked like he was kind of getting it back a little bit, but then foot kind of started getting off the brake or off the gas a little bit more, and he's starting to fall off once again. So it's kind of like that situation where you don't really want to send him down because you want him to make sure that you know that everybody has confidence in him. But at some point, you just got to think he's in a little bit of a slump. Maybe some AAA pitching will do well for him, and I think he's just got to get it back to it because the big thing and the big saying in Major League Baseball is that in relativity, it's easy to get to the majors, but it's even harder to stay there. And it doesn't matter if you're a first overall pick or if you're an undrafted guy coming out of JUCO, you're going to have to fight for your spot. And Torkelson, just because he's got that kind of reputation of being a big hitter, and he did so well last year. This year, you got to keep on rolling with it, and he's just not been able to. So I think, though, he's going to be doing fine. He soared like he was a rocket in the minors all throughout. I mean, I saw him. I think you saw him when he played at West Michigan for the Whitecaps. It seemed like every ball he hit was a absolute nuke, and it didn't matter. And they did the same thing in AA and AAA. So I think it's going to be an easy spot for him to get back in the swing of things. And then we'll see how he plays out if we can get him back up. But I would say don't rush him getting back up. You want to make sure that he is just having the time of his life down there to make sure that he can get back into it. And the type of hitter that he is and that we've known him to be, it's just not showing right now. Just got to give it time.
For sure. And I think it was the first or the second game he was back. We saw him have multiple RBI, multiple extra base hit games. So it just might take a different perspective for him at this point because we know that him and his talent can take him so far in this league. And that's especially the thing that's frustrating for Tigers fans. It's not like we hate the guy. It's like we know his potential and we want him to get there so badly because the kid is so talented, right? And especially when you see him kind of struggle his way through, just not able to make contact and really not having good, successful seasons like we're expecting numbers wise and even performance wise to his own standards. It's really tough. It's tough for us fans knowing how much of an expense he was for how many years. We just continue to struggle. Then we finally get ourselves in position to get the first pick. Then we end up getting him, and everything was going to be smooth sailing from there. But it's just really been tough for him at the major league level. Maybe a new perspective at AAA will help. We certainly hope so. But really, kind of in his absence, I mean, we've had a lot of guys that have stepped in, especially over the last couple of games here. So I'm looking forward to seeing. I mean, I'm actually going to be there on Saturday, which is tomorrow as you're hearing this live, or maybe today if you're catching up a day late. So I'm going to be very excited to see who's going to be in the lineup, especially Reese Olson's pitching tonight, which I'm kind of bummed. I want to see him tomorrow, but not necessarily going to be the case. Well, I'm probably going to see Casey Mize, which will be a really fun thing, as I've seen Mize kind of almost all the levels so far. But it's going to be really fun. I'll be seriously considering buying a jersey this weekend, Joe. I know you're not necessarily the big fan of the Canucks, but I mean, if I have a chance
They're
to
hey,
go to the store, I might
they've
buy one.
grown on me. They've grown on me because they're winning in them. All right. I don't care if they're
Sure.
going out there in potato sacks, dude. If they're winning those, I might as well just toss a couple numbers on there and I'd buy it in a heartbeat. All right. So I'm just not a fan of the Nike jerseys that we got with Fanatics. If it was anything else, if it was Majestic, then for sure. Yeah. But I don't know, it's a little bit different when it comes to the Nike stuff. That's the only problem I have with it. But they're starting to grow on me for sure. So I won't be too mad if you buy one, Brandon. But what's something that you're looking forward to seeing? Do you think you got maybe some score predictions for tomorrow? I mean, they're going to be starting up that series against the Brewers today, so it's going to be, maybe a bounce back game. Keep it going. What do you think for this series?
Yeah, I want to see the bats explode, and that's something that they've done at Comerica. Obviously, we can really reminisce on the 14-run game. That was an incredible baseball game. I actually had a friend that I was talking to at an open house recently that said his very first game was he went to that game, the 14-11 walk-off Veerling bomb, as his first Major League Baseball game. What a treat that was.
That's
It's
awesome.
almost it's like shooting a 10-point deer if you're a hunter. It's like, oh, this is amazing, but I don't think I can ever top this. I can keep going year after year, but it's not going to happen. But I think we should see some offense bouncing back this weekend. Obviously, Texas is a really tough team. Defensively, they are very, very good. You have Simeon, you got Seager, you got a lot of those guys that play incredible gloves, and it's hard to get any base hits. You got to earn them. So we saw really low run games, especially held for our offense, which isn't necessarily uncharacteristic for how our offense has been sluggish this year. But I think against Milwaukee, a couple of favorable arms, especially on the mound, that we can get after. I'm looking at Riley Green, Mark Canna, those guys right near the top middle lineup. They really get going. I would love to see potentially get Andy Ibanez a bat. I think especially since he came back, he's really kind of been a little bit of a spark plug. I think he could really break out. But I think especially as much as we're going to probably talk about all the other 8 players, there's going to be one number that every Tigers fan is going to be watching, and that's 28, to see if he makes contact with the baseball. Otherwise, he's probably going to get booed out of the park. I saw it earlier this season. We might see it again. He's been up and down. Obviously, the series in Arizona was fantastic. I don't know exactly what happened there, what he had for a pregame meal there in Arizona, but keep whatever that was and keep it going. So I don't care if it's superstitious at that point. But I think that's definitely going to be one that the fans are going to watch, and hopefully he performs, because I don't really want to see him get booed every single game, because at the end of the day, he is a part of our team. He is getting paid a lot of money and he's struggling so far, but at least we got to get behind him. I mean, as Detroit fans, you have to at this point. You don't want to dig the guy into the ground.
Yeah, you got to. If you're a good fan base, you'll raise up the players. You won't tear them down. But we'll see how it plays out. I think it's a favorable pitching matchup too with Milwaukee. None of their starters, I think, have lower than a 3.5. I think maybe Bryce Wilson has like a 3.3 or something like that. But it's still a spot where we can really just kind of maybe get the bats going once again after that tough loss to the Rangers, like you were saying. So luckily, we got some good spots and some good things to be happening. Hopefully, you have a good time at the game tomorrow, Brent. I think that's probably it for what we got to talk about today. I know it's a little bit shorter than a lot of people would hope for when it comes to rundown, but when it gets later on in the season for high school, it just kind of, that's the way the road goes. But still, thank you so much for listening. Brandon, you have anything else that you want to kind of toss out there before you let the people go?
For sure. Big thanks to Michigan ADAS for being a part of the show. Big thanks to them. Any make or model, they can take care of everything calibrations and glass. Find out more, michiganadas.com. Great fans of the show, great supporters, and we got to, of course, shout them out. But no, it's been good. A lot of baseball, a lot of softball, and it's unfortunately kind of dwindling to an end here. We're still going to have some here in Big Rapids. We'll have the Big Rapids Lumberjacks playing in the Shoreline League. They'll be playing at Big Rapids High School. We'll see the Rubber Ducks as well. Be sure Tuesday, head on over to Big Rapids High School. The Lumberjacks playing against the Rubber Ducks. A lot of local players going to be teaming up on both teams. It's going to be really fun to watch, so be on over there. Quick, fast, in a hurry. 6 o'clock, I believe, first pitch, 9-inning game. So be there, be square. It's going to be a really fun game. So you'll probably hear some radio announcements as well on that. So you can tune in on WBRN.com or as well on Big Country on 100.9. So that's really all I got to say about that. We can't wait for summer ball, baby. I mean, it's almost softball season for us here, Joe. We got to get going, man. I got to get swinging.
Yeah, me too. Got a slow pitch softball game coming up too that I'm looking forward to. But thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Rundown. We'll be back next week with hopefully more CSAA action to talk about. But we got Rubber Ducks and we got more Tiger Baseball too coming at you in just 7 days. Stay frosty, friends. It's me, Joe, Brandon, hanging out with you. We appreciate you. Love you. We'll be seeing you later.
Peace.